A lot of people think Volkswagen looks fairly cheap right now. I also used to think that and bought some shares before the CEO Herbert Diess was fired. I instantly sold it after that. Firing of the CEO just showed that the company is no longer able to compete with its rivals. And there's some specialty here, because Volkswagen is not like every other German car company. There is the Volkswagen law, which basically states that if you have 20% of voting rights, you can block important decisions. And take a guess who has over 20% of a company. My home state of Lower Saxony. They are usually ruled by a left-wing government. So here you had a CEO who tried to modernize the company, because Volkswagen, when it comes to automation, is way behind. They employ way more people per car, so they're not able to compete long-term with other companies like BMW, BYD, and Tesla. Well, Herbert Diess tried to fix this, but they were stopped by the Lower Saxony government, because that would mean job losses in their home state. And then there's also that you need to have a certain majority to bring production overseas. And guess who fills up that majority? The labor union, because they have to, according to German law, sit on the table as well. You can't just look at Volkswagen as a pure cash flow play. There's always this risk that the government or the labor union, or even together, will stop important decisions, like the modernization. But then you think, okay, maybe that is like this. Maybe they will be less profitable in the future. But look at this cash flow. I mean, 15 billion on a 57 market cap? That just means it's a pure value play, right? Well, first of all, this cash flow is highly volatile. Here it was negative, here it was slightly positive, here it was very high. But on average, over the cycles adjusted, Volkswagen brings in about 5 to 8 billion in free cash flow per year. So take this as a one-off. But let's say 5 billion, that's still only a 12 times free cash flow multiple. Can't be that bad, plus they pay out good dividends. This dividend won't be that high for the long term. They had a one-off dividend here. And also something people just forget about this company is the incredible amount of debt, 142 billion euros. That is net debt, not including total debt. And now we look at the debt and we see, of course, a bunch of stuff matures fairly soon. And when I'm looking 1.1%, 3.4%, 2.9%, 0.05%, 0.88%, 0.9%, I think you get it. Volkswagen has bought at such cheap rates that when they have to refinance billions of euros and dollars over the next few years, yes, rates are probably gonna come low, but they're still gonna be higher than before in the meantime. And that means this 0.88% is gonna go to 5, 6, 7, who knows. And if you think about it, with that amount of debt that they're maturing, in the next few years alone, it's a few billion dollars, triple, quadruple the interest rate they pay on these loans on average. Then those 5 to 8 billion in free cash flow quickly becomes not that much anymore. And at the same time, while you have CEOs being fired for automation, there's also the EV revolution, when more and more of the market share goes towards EVs. And Volkswagen is very strong in the internal combustion engine, but not on EVs. So they will also have to invest heavily there, so that means also all the free cash flow goes to there, and that will be with a lower market share on the car market, which means also lower revenue. They sell so many cars, they can't grow on volume that much anymore over the next decade, especially because in their core markets, Europe, China, there the population is gonna shrink. It is very unlikely that they're gonna have revenue growth in the long term, in my opinion, because their core markets are gonna shrink, and EVs, which are gonna take up more of the car market, they do not have such a high market share there as before. Also, there are gonna be no buybacks. Buybacks are very unpopular in Germany, especially when the government can just block them, and they're gonna do that. They would sort of say, hey, just invest. The only way I think you will get money from this is over the dividend. So let's say they get a bit more than 5 billion in free cash flow. Despite all the headwinds they have with losing market share, with refinancing at higher rates, and with higher, I mean, sometimes 5 times the rate. On one of the loans with 0.05, they will probably have to refinance at 10 times the rate. Let's assume they grow a bit. Not in volume, maybe they just raise prices 2% for the next 10 years, and that is still a fairly aggressive assumption in my opinion. 10 multiple, it's a car company that is not growing anymore that much. 40% payout ratio with a little deduction due to taxes. Well, then we come to 70 euros. The current value is 106. But if we think free cash flow will stay a bit higher, maybe they're gonna have more market share in the EV, maybe they will refinance at lower rates, I don't know. Whatever you think about it, slightly higher growth rate, slightly higher multiple because, you know, it's still steadily growing. Well, then, yes, we would make money. We would get around 10% return, but also some fairly aggressive assumptions in my opinion, especially 5 and 3% free cash flow growth. That is not gonna happen at Volkswagen. Now what if a more realistic scenario happens? This would be the one I'm going for. Little bit lower free cash flow, slightly shrinking, and that is even not too conservative in my opinion. 2% for a worst case scenario would maybe be better. 8 multiple for a shrinking company. Well, then we come to 39 euros. I just don't like Volkswagen. The one specific law which gives the government voting rights in Volkswagen, that just stopped the company from modernizing. If you want to invest in a car company, take another one. Every other car company is fine, except Volkswagen. This one specific law stopped the company from modernizing, stopped the company from being shareholder positive. And overall, the numbers here are just not in your favor. Maybe if this happens, if the stock drops to 40 euros, maybe I will invest. But I'm not too sure. What about you? Do you own any other car companies? Write it down below. Have a good day.